outer realms are not locked onto a certain type of inner realms. So, and Saint Francis of Assisi even says the quote in the idea in a much better way. He says, "It is in dying to ourself that we are born to eternal life." And honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not like I wasn't raised Christian, but in looking at Christianity and just seeing the concept of the baptism, to me it felt like the baptism was not just an outer realm objective act, but was in some sense an initiation into a state where through the faith of the person, they were kind of like born again as the presence of their consciousness rather than the personality of it. And of course, guys, I'm not a Christian theologian, but I'm just sharing the observations I've made. But there is this concept and theme of transformation in all, like I can't tell you, all traditions I've seen. All, if you were to say, Mr. Within, what do all the ancient wisdom traditions have in common? I'll be like, you're giving up something to become something more. That's it. Whether you're worshipping a god and you're giving away your individualism to a collective archetype, whether you're worshipping a universe and you're giving your individualism to a collective archetype, pretty much it's as if like this is the story of the soul of man, He started off as ice, the ice melted, he became liquid, the liquid evaporated, he became steam. And so what it means is that it's the ultimate return of the journey of the unconscious mind, the journey of the conscious world, the conscious mind into the unconscious body and back into the conscious mind. That means pretty much when a human being is born, what happens, right? The human being's like, yo, I'm being something right now. They ask the person, like, how did you get enlightened? And the person's like, yeah, man, so I just noticed light is being my whole existence, and my existence is in the middle of nowhere. So that means my mind is choosing what light has to be. There's many things we can fear in this life. When I was younger, I feared my own imagination, like it was intense. There's this epic story about Elon Musk where when he was young, he was afraid of the darkness, and then he looks up in the encyclopedia that darkness is just the absence of light. The absence of photons, and his fear of darkness goes away. He confronts the fear of his own psyche. In this talk, guys, there's been moments where I give these talks, and because it's going into the cyberspace, and in cyberspace anybody can hear it, there has been moments where I've thought, what if like somebody in the hospital at the end of their life is like hearing this talk, and if they were hearing this talk, what would be the significance? What would be the point of life completing rather than just ending? Because an end, the concept of an ending is peaceful, strangely, because it's like there's no more content. It's like when the film ends, it ends. The characters, we are no longer with the imagery of the character, right? So the concept of an end can strangely have from not common, but from an uncommon way of perception, a strange philosophical solace, SOLACE, solace in it. And I would say, but the completion of life is really if the internal intent, pretty much your inner realms. So let's say there are desires of the outer realms and there's desires of the inner realms. Okay, and if the desires of your inner realms, there are major ones. If the major ones of major desires don't express, it's like, even though we have this notion the soul is timeless, but its work with time needs to be coordinated. There was a a comedian. I know I'm going all over the place with ideas here, but I want to tell you, there was this comedian who I actually respect, and I like his comedy, but I don't like his personality too much. But I like this comedian. His comedy's genius, and his name. His name is Patrice O'Neill, and there were some radio. I saw this YouTube video where there were these radio hosts, and these radio hosts were talking about how Patrice O'Neill had lived the way he had lived his life was. This is a sentence from the video I remember. Where the radio news host says Patrice O'Neill lived his life as if after his life he was gonna watch his whole life with 3 of his best friends. Do you see? That means it's as if like our consciousness to what we are doing beyond the eyes of a first person point of view is really transcendental.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
If we say a completed system, a system that goes into completion, we say it has a life cycle. Not only man, where he finds himself in a sort of created dimension, created world of design, or already present world of design, or how would I say this, like the human being looks at a system. In this system, there's like certain clues. One clue is that the system was here before we were here. Another clue is that we can create in the system. The concept of creation means that whatever you're doing needs to have a starting point. Just like all of our biological bodies had a starting point in this existence, right? The start of something means the energy is going a certain direction. And what this means is that regardless of how multidimensionally you perceive life, if you take the pilot analogy, the pilot has to land the plane. That means this idea that human beings are in planes of existence, it is valid, but it is not correct in the sense that every consciousness is piloting their plane of existence as much as they feel the world is piloting them. If one becomes a materialist, the outer realms is the immediate governance of the psyche, right? If the person becomes an immaterialist, the inner realms are the governor of the psyche. And consciousness poetically is like the speaker of the house of its own simulated ideological parliament. Many things, their completion can only be acknowledged by their ending. An artist draws a picture until the last paint is on the painting or on the canvas. It's like until the artist stops the creative action, there is no completion. And seldom is this said, but at the end of creativity, we find masterpiece to be a post-disconnect state. What that means is let me tell you, it's kind of hilarious. Just like a chef maybe puts food in the oven, puts bread in the oven, and then takes the bread out and the bread is complete. You know, it's as if our creative spirit in this manner, in this plane of existence, how we live is like the cake. And the moment we are, in some sense, our attention is moving beyond how we move the world, how we set the world into motion or momentum. It's as if at the end of your life, you're done with the painting and you get to see what kind of lifetime you drew, what kind of masterpiece you drew in all the moments where energy was accessible, what action was taking place, was decided upon. You know, for me, there's something strange. The human being, the human animal, or our species has a privilege that no other species has. It's through the sophistication of language use, and not just language acquisition, language attribution. What that means is we looked at something and we gave it an attribute, and that attribute became linked with the object subjectively, and it became the object in our inner realm. You know what it is? It's like the body is a dancer. The mind is like an painter, you know, like a sculptor or like a designer. And the soul is the witness of the design. That means, just like Michelangelo has this quote where he says, "I saw the angel in the stone and I set it free." This great sculptor looked at some chunk of rock that was purely meaningless, and he saw an angel in the rock, and he began, that means his inner realms overlaid the angel on the giant piece of stone, and Michelangelo just grabbed some tools and started sculpting it, right? So the inner realms sees meaning in matter. That means the purpose of matter is to be used by mind, and the purpose of mind is to be watched by soul. And the purpose of soul is that the world is too big to be governed alone. Last night I gave a talk titled, what was it titled? Titled, "The Intellect Can Suffer If There Is No Faith in Others." Something after I finished that talk where I was like, I should have probably said more about, was that the reason the intellect suffers is because it doesn't have faith in the world where the world is its power source. That means sometimes those who this is something, sometimes I envy, sometimes I think I'm being, I'm moving past my own emotions too quickly sometimes in the space-time continuum I feel. But something I envy of those who actually can listen to their emotions. You see, there's a difference between having emotions and being conscious of them, and a difference of like being emotional but it's unconscious. That means the person has too much of an ego to even truly see what is going on in their own system of being. Without faith in others, it's as if we don't trust the world to be in it. And I'm telling you, those who distrust the world, you exit the world quickly. But if you trust the world, you stay here, right? And if you trust yourself, that's another way of saying you're trusting a part of the natural universe. You know, for me, there's 3 levels to human intelligence, or to intelligence, okay? 3 levels. And in these 3 levels, one of the levels only dies. Only one of the it's like 3 simulations are running at the same time. Imagine like 3 films projected onto the same wall from 3 different projectors, okay? One of the projectors turns off. The other 2 projectors stay on. That means if life was 3-dimensional, death is one of those dimensions becoming inactive. Just like we close our eyes and like the visual sensory perception, 1/5 of our sensory reception of the moment is blocked. when we close our eyes. When we open our eyes, it is immediately accessible. So when we close our eyes, it doesn't mean the dimension goes anywhere, right? Just because people die, it doesn't mean the world dies. The world keeps on going and people keep on being born and whatnot, right? It's as if we exit, our workspace. It's as if saying like somebody who goes to work and then they come home. When they were at work, they were in a different environment, in a different universe of behaviorism, right? In different environments, a person's personality is not just their free will. It is how their free will responds to the stimulus in the environment. We can't ignore the fact that this creature receives information and reacts to its own information. And for a majority of life, it has been unconsciously reacting. And now we need to change an unconscious reaction into a conscious engagement. And whatever archetype that gets us there, great. You want to call yourself a meditator to be conscious, sure. You want to call yourself to an intellectual to be conscious, whatever gets you there. But the whole idea is that eventually one will come to a realization upon the recognition that language is hollow, that one has to be a pilot. What that means is these three dimensions, guys, is a dimension of beginnings, a dimension of maintenance, I would say Vishnu's abode, and a dimension of complete ending. What that means is life has three beautiful angles of three types of beauty. You look at a moment where there's nothing and something new enters the moment and the person's like, it's so beautiful. I never thought, modernity will, stand up again. The person has a tear in their eye. So there's the dimension of beginnings. Anytime something is beginning, anytime a human being is trying something new, anytime a human being enters the system, anytime anything new is happening, one must have an honor for that dimension. Because I'm telling you, the beginning state of mind is an eternal state. That means there is a state where there is no concept of death. It's just creation till the end of time. It's just like an outlet. It's like a dimension where only the new is authorized. Then we have, so let's say there's three dimensions to the moment. One dimension, the person has to find their contentment and ultimate universal acknowledgement that things start. And it can never be stopped. That means you could be the kindest person or you could be the most evil person. You're like, I don't want to see this world succeed. You will be incapable of stopping nature from bringing forth new design. It's like nature is the greatest designer ever, right? And it is so powerful in its design generation, right? That when we look at the complexity of our biological body, when we look at the nature around us, when we look at the cosmological system we're in, right? Our relationship with like a giant gas cloud, that's bursting, that's like emanating light. Do you see what I mean? It's all really too sophisticated. Nature's creativity is master level. It's as if nature is the master, and human beings till the end of time are disciples of the creative dimensions of nature. Now, let's say so there's a dimension of beginnings. Then there's a dimension of after something is created, what happens then, right? It doesn't matter if you're creating art, if you're generating sound, whatever you're doing. It's like after something has created, it's another way of saying the airplane has lifted up. Now the purpose of the airplane is not to create anymore, it's to maintain its creation. And then it reaches a certain point where after the airplane is done, the only purpose of the airplane when it's getting close to its destination is to descend. And so what that means is we are like an attributeless mind piloting a body which gives us access to infinite attributes in regards to how free will chooses to walk in you. Life ends only when it's about to complete. that means it's like at some point this talk even ends. And if I don't appreciate endings, can you imagine? Can you imagine, like, I gave the first talk and then I didn't know how to end talks, you know? So I just, like, for hours and hours, imagine it's like this person has been, it's like, can you imagine? It's like Mr.Within gave one talk, but that one talk was like, you know, like 10,000 hours. The longest talk, you know, it's like, I'm pretty much saying that there is just an elegance in noticing that things enter the scene, things play out in the scene, and then things leave the scene. Events just take place. As much as we can say it's a materialistic realm where objects change, let's say the half-life of elements, you know, like, let's say there's decay even on an elemental level. I don't know. I just know that life, to me for now, feels really like a painting. And it's a painting that's a symbiosis. That means the world is drawing most of it, and we're just, you know, helping the world hold the brush in a certain level. Right? So we are a tiny percentage. We're like an ant on an anthill, wondering how we can help the firemen who want to save a burning world. You know what I mean? So there's definitely way greater things in life that make a person be very embracive of the unknown, rather than to be limited by it, you know? And the whole thing is, when a human being, let's say in their life they descend and they go towards death, you know? I see my own grandparents, and they're very old, but I can see like their minds and psychology when I go to meet them. And it's as if their psychology, it's as if, you know, their body's life is still, like, the body's still on its journey to the end of the mountain, let's say back towards the top of the mountain and then going back down the mountain. If life was a sort of bell curve, I can see that their physical existence is weakened. I can see that their psychological existence is on its retaliating on its last stand level, where it's as if it's a natural thing that when a person gets old, they keep repeating, like, their victories to themselves. Like, every time I see my grandfather, he repeats a time of his life where he was victorious. And you know what it means? It means that there is a fear of death, so the person is trying to be their memories, you know? And not that there's a right or wrong to this, but really, somebody once said growing old and looking back at your life is like living twice. And there's a saying too, they say not everybody has the privilege of growing old, especially with this neo-chemical society we have going on. You know, an ending can't make sense without a beginning. We won't even have the concept if something didn't begin. And it is our identification as the small that makes us fear the big, you know? My whole life, I will tell you, I have been kinda on a research trying to figure out what is the source of fear. Like, why does the human being need to even have fear in a world, or where does it come from, right? And obviously a dimension of fear comes from the outer realms. Let's say you're walking in the forest and a tiger stares at you, there's going to be fear in that moment, you know, regardless of how enlightened you are. If you're being chased by a bear, you know, it's like you're going to have a little bit of fear. So there's the outer realm fear, but then there's the inner realm. And if it's like the outer realm fear, we can't do anything about it. Like, if we touch fire, our hand burns, you know, it makes sense to fear fire. Like, it's a rational fear. but I would say when it comes to the inner realms and how we fear the future, or how we fear how we will enter the future, this is in the domain of the free will's control. You know, that means man may not have an ability to change the world, but he has an ability to change his mind. And the moment we change our mind, it's as if we have accessed another dimension of the same world. That means, like, you know, I've been on this planet since 1991, and I can tell you, it's as if, like, I still can't tell if we are 8 billion, if we're 8 billion individuals, or we are one giant field of being. And I will tell you, the more I walk in this world, the more I get convinced by nature, by direct experiential nature, that energy cannot die. And so it's how consciously energy has understood itself beyond change. What else? There can be no other definition for enlightenment beyond that. Not beyond that, but it has to like at minimum, you know, satisfy that situation, that angle. In the subtitle, I've written efforts of the consciously existent. Consciously existent. We exist. And the only reason we exist is because we can do something. Now imagine if a statue was alive. We would not know if it exists or not, right? To itself, right? Because it is not moving, or it's like there's no sort of motion. Our existence is animation based. Right now, you know, I'm looking at my iced cappuccino, and it's consciously existing. Anyways, guys, back to the notion of the 3 dimensions. Let me take it there. 3 dimensions to life. The quicker you acknowledge and notice these dimensions, these 3 modalities, let me say it this way so it's more universal. 3 modes to life. One mode, there is the creative dimension. What that means is all human beings can, all conscious human beings, anybody capable of driving or can understand the vehicle metaphor, it's as if the vehicle can be driven. So every human being has to be responsible for all the cells and elements and atoms that compose them. After one has, in some sense, the commander the general is in perfect communication with its army. That means once your body is in the kingdom of your consciousness, is aware and is listening to the kingdom of your consciousness, then the next phase is to, in some sense, after you have made the elemental physical realm your ally, to in some sense go towards making the subjective, the inner realms, your ally. And I don't want to say it's kind of negotiation between kings of different universes, but I will tell you it's like the person's like, what do I do with all this physical stuff here? And you accept the percentage of this physical landscape that we can move as ourselves. Then when it comes to the inner realm, the strange thing about the inner realm is that you can't accept your mind like an object, because the mind isn't an object. And so how does one accept the dimension that the creative body has led to, you know? Because right now, You know, some people feel the brain is a film projector. You know, some people feel the brain is a vehicle, and some people like myself feel the brain is an antenna. It is a biological antenna. Our antennas are based on our brains. Poetically inspired out of my own inner realms, I can tell you, you just look at the physical world and you're like, I see you, physical universe. And then you realize the physical universe can't see you. That means an atom doesn't have a mind. But when a complex combination of atoms do though. And of course, some philosophers may be like, Mr. Within, how about pantheism? I'll be like, sure. Pantheism is saying like, it's saying the same thing as religion. When religion says God is everywhere, the pantheism is another way of saying the universe is intelligent. Completely, though. That means pantheists believe atoms have minds. But anyways, what I was saying is you look at the physical universe and you just treat yourself as a pilot and you're like, okay, this is a physical landscape. It has its own laws. It has its own dimensions of function. There's 8 billion human beings on the planet, each inputting their own, let's say, unique energetic expression into the realm. So what that means is it's like being a human in 2021 in the outer realms means being the pilot of the periodic table as a believe it or not, linguistic illusion. That means it's like we're like, God doesn't exist, but then somebody's like, hey, what about the idea of ourselves? Does that exist? And we're like, holy shit. You know, we thought God doesn't exist. We thought the concept of God was man-made. We realized the idea of man is man-made. Do you see this linguistic simulation that history has kept us in? Has been, and from one angle, a masterpiece of the inner realms, but from another angle, it has been the ignorance of the outer. You accept the outer realms for whatever they are. That means it's like, imagine, forget about accepting people and not judging people. You just want to accept the periodic table. You're like, okay, you know, all those people who I think that they are my friends, all those people who I feel they are my enemies or whatever, let's say that person's mind is walked this way, you know, the person would be like, they're all the periodic table. Holy shit. You know, so in some sense, a human being having an enemy is like atoms kind of disliking each other. You know what I mean? It's the elemental realm in ignorance, right? And to me, it's like we're all just opportunities of life, you know? That means I don't know how violence has endured so long. It's honestly baffling to me. Because a violent dimension is destructive by nature. It's as if a violent person is asking, like, you know, the angel of death to come sooner. It's as if the violence has not understood the value of intelligence, because if it had, it wouldn't take a violent approach, because in violence, you're limited. Violence is like a singular outcome. It's so easy to manipulate a violent person, you know. How many movies do we see, like The Godfather or whatever? It's like, it's so easy to manipulate angry, violent people. Why? Because they want only one thing. They haven't understood the multidimensional elegance of recognizing we have moved into the era where an animal doesn't have to be an animal anymore. That's a miracle. We're living inside a miracle and people are still fighting. You know, it's like ridiculous. You know, it's like the person, let's say nowadays there's a lot of people evidently, especially in the cyberspace gaming sector, a gaming sector of cyberspace. I see a lot of videos of people, you know, public, let's say, public cyberspace figures that are in depression, right? And the way you respond to depression, I would say, is to see a bigger world, not a smaller world, because usually that kind of makes the person, it's all about the value you give it. So it's kind of like, imagine the brain is like a film projector, and you choose which wall this film is projected on. You can put it on a proper big wall, you can put it on a small wall, you can in some sense turn off the projector, and these are all like measured ways of the self-worth of the person, So it's like more and more we're realizing in the creative dimension there is no defeat. It's like a dimension of an endless victory. In the maintenance dimension, so the creative dimension in Vedic thought is known as Brahman's abode. So Brahman is the creative archetype. And this is, at least I'm taking a certain scholarly approach to this. But Brahman is the creative dimension. Vishnu is the maintenance dimension, the endurance dimension. And then there is, what do you call it? Shiva, the final dimension of the exit, right? And if a human being can in some sense become an ally of these three dimensions become their ally, by just being here, they are untouched by change, because those three dimensions are the face of change. That means somebody's like, hey man, how's this world changing? And we see things start, we see things kind of endure, and then we see things break, right? We see things stop, right? So it's like this constant cycle of there's nothing there, then there's something there, then there's something there, it updates, then there's something there is not, this updated something there is not there. Because, guys, there's a quote by Salvador Dali. He says, do not seek perfection, you'll never reach it. And what he means is, if you are an artist, you can